Hello, my name is Francis Fox, and I'm a trained government remote viewer. I have a degree from the University of Miami in political science. I ran a successful business for 30 years, and it still exists today, 50 some years later, which is a sign of tremendous foundations, which is what I do. So sometimes I look like a slowpoke, um, and I take a little bit too long, but I make sure that things are very grounded and landed. My intention in this incarnation is to give you extra information from the other dimensions, which is where reality is created. It's where power is. And in this part of the world, the sophistication of the materialistic societies has created a misunderstanding of what spirituality is. It's thought that spirituality is being nice, being good. And that's not what spirituality is. Spirituality is anything that's not physical, which would include the energies of the devil, being bad, having bad intentions. It's your intention that determines how you use the energy of the spiritual dimensions, which are the non physical. I'm a little bit shaken today. Several days ago, I felt the earth move twice. And unfortunately, when I felt that, 9 days after 9/11, there was a new fault line that was formed under New York City due to the retention of emotional violence that was covered over with compassion for the people that died, dot, dot, dot. I felt that several days ago and I posted it on all my social media. So we've continued on and nothing that interesting has been happening because the information that I posted was that basically humanity would be divided into two separate groups of people, those that had done their inner work, which means cleaned up their reaction to traumas. It's the most simple way of saying it. Nothing to do with whether you're a good or bad person. God made this planet with free will. You are allowed to be a bad person. You are allowed to do things that are ugly, murderous. Now, if you do them and you deep down inside don't really agree with that, then there's going to be a consequence. But you're allowed to do that. And if you don't internally feel maybe I shouldn't have done that, you'll be fine and you'll have a very high frequency. That doesn't generally happen, but that's part of the process. So, and the message that I gave was, which I'm going to put on screen today again and read it out loud for those that are watching this via. Ah, it talks about I have it in Spanish, but I'm going to put it on screen in Spanish and I'll translate it. The earth is moving, the wheat is separated from the chaff. Um, History is evolving exactly the way it was prophesized, and the worlds will divide now. It's too late to accuse other people, accuse yourself, or cry. You either did your internal work or you didn't. You ignored that. And frequencies are no longer restricted. The law of attraction with the people of your same frequency you will not be able to block it. The mantra for this time is the same mantra for peace. Please God help us with our intention that there be a miraculous purification of the fear and the hate. That was several days ago. So today I'm doing the map, and I did the map of the United States. And it's interesting that I needed a background for the graphic. And the background that came up was Atlantis, which basically the concept of what happened to Atlantis in the end matches that statement that the dolphins gave me several days ago that I just read to you. Basically, that what was prophesied is going to happen, which means catastrophes and a separation of the wheat from the chaff, and some people will not have to go through it and others will. Saying that, I was pleased that the colors of Atlantis were the colors that I love, which is that bluish for dolphins. And right next to the photograph was the photograph of the crystals. Crystals are the maximum of the earth element. And supposedly Atlantis went under because they were addicted to crystals. So, but the point being that if we remember the Lord's Prayer originally in Aramaic, which most of you don't know, we were deprived of that information. It doesn't say deliver us from evil, it says help us to be in the present, which means grounded, landed, which in metaphysics means you have enough of the earth element. In metaphysics, life is supposed to be everything in life: your house, your company, your body, your health is supposed to be a balance of the four elements. And the earth element is the most important one, having to do with evil. And aliens don't have the earth element. And the devil is an alien. And if you have enough of the earth element, the devil cannot give you any grief. You can't get possessed, which is why it says that in the Lord's Prayer. But I'm getting a little bit too theoretical. It appears it's not. I'm giving you working metaphysics. So let's go ahead. And the next person that says that Trump should not be golfing so much, I am going to personally slap around, because the fact that he goes golfing or plays golf means he's getting the earth element. He's a air sign. He's a Gemini air sign. And his instincts have made him understand that playing golf is really good for him. And it is really good for him because it keeps him healthy. It keeps him landed and grounded. So now, with that in mind, I'm going to show you the map of the United States today, about half an hour ago. Nope, that's not what I want. This is the map. Now, what on earth do you see in the middle? You see a huge crystal, a triangle, which normally, I'm not sure that I sketched this on top of the United States. I think I've sketched all those pyramids in the Gulf of America. They used to be green, now they're orange, which is really good because orange is a sacred color. Green is the color of the heart and healing. But now this triangle, you know what? I think I did sketch it once. Let me see. 1 second. Nope. No, I don't. I think this is the first time. This is great. This means that the United States is grounded, is anchored, which means protection from evil, protection from catastrophes. This is great. So going on to the rest of the map, there's another eclipse tomorrow. So we're all shaking, and I have been struggling to keep my entire body from trembling these last couple of days. So there has got to be a lot happening with Mother Earth, because that would be the reason for my physical body to tremble. We have the ripple effect on the left of the map, and that's coming from the Pacific. And we already know, I believe, that there was another earthquake in Russia, but it's blue, and that the Pacific has a portal that has to do with the ascension process, but it's a good portal. We have the orange pyramids in the Gulf of America. This is really good because that again is stabilizing. And then we have Mexico with the ripple effect of the orange. So Mexico is evolving very nicely. Thank you. Mexico is very important to the United States. And the relationship, regardless of how much people try to trash it or say that Trump is trashing it, that is not what's going on in the other dimensions. What's going on in the other dimensions is really good. Florida is good. It's got the green energy of the heart and of healing. And remember, that's helpful friends. And we can see, at least it appeared to me, I didn't pay a lot of attention, that Trump's trip to Europe has been wildly successful in terms of the feelings of feeling good together. The people that got together felt good together, like friends, helpful friends. I don't know what happened politically, but I haven't seen practically anything negative. So the fact that the United States has this section, and I'm going to show you it here. This is the map. You lay the Bhagwan map on top of the United States, and I'm sorry that it's in Spanish. Actually, I'm sorry that you don't know Spanish and that I have to translate. At the lower right, that section, which would be Florida, the United States, and probably a piece of Georgia, has to do, it channels the energies of helpful friends, benefactors, and also travel. It looks really good. Put it up again. So that would have been tremendous support for this trip that Trump is making. And for his, I think this morning he also had a call with the Chinese prime minister, whatever the title is. And these energies have everything to do with how people are going to relate to the United States. And this, again, going back to the history since I've been mapping, has everything to do with the relationship between Trump and Elon. For some reason, they represent either helpful friends or not helpful friends. And they skipped a beat for whatever issues, and we are supposed to have problems. When we have problems, it's because we need them. What was it that came up and what got resolved? I don't know. I don't care. All I know is there was an issue, therefore they needed it, and then it resolved or is in process of resolution, and now the map is looking good again. Why is half of Texas looking really good and the other half not? I'm going to give an opinion on that. Everything has a male and female sign, and the male sign of Texas appears to be doing really well and not the female sign. What does that mean? Not really sure. Not really sure. But I give you the information that I get. So let's go into everything else. And United States doing very well. What's my conclusion? When I felt the earth change, it would have been like a week ago, I said we are in trouble. This is not about Florida. This is about the planet. I asked the dolphins and they said, that's it. The wheat was separated from the chaff. I'm not sure I pronounced that right. And that what was prophesied was going to happen, and what was prophesied was earth changes, catastrophes. So the United States, showing it again, has enough of the earth element, which means we will be protected from evil, which is really good. I can't do the whole planet. Somebody made such a cute comment to me the other day. This woman said, nobody's going to hire you. And I went, okay. They said, because even the nice people, they don't want you to know everything about them, and they know that you're going to know everything about them, and they don't want that. Nobody's going to hire you. I went, okay, it's not a problem. Not a problem. They will. Whoever it is that's appropriate, well, I can tell you this, I'm not hearing these power players talking about hiring me the way I did like a month ago. But I made it very clear via this chat that I only work with people that I resonate with, which is the whole frequency match. I only work with people I resonate with. And the people that I could hear discussing me that were so excited, look, we got another tool to control others, realized that's not going to work. And that's neat because, again, separating the wheat from the chaff. I say it verbally, but even if they hired me, it would have been a problem because we weren't on the same frequency. Okay. I realized something so huge the other day. It's not easy having a head like mine that was trained. It really isn't, because you don't stop thinking and then you realize, oh my God, and if people knew this, then they wouldn't. Do you know how we got into so much trouble in this country? We continued the Nazi programs. Second World War ended, we won. We went over there, the military was already over there, and they took over all those research projects and all those things that the Nazis did in cahoots with the bad galactics. Within that was the project that I was always told that my mother was German, Blavatsky. And I'm going to say it because I've been told that it might be important for that information to be out there. And certainly, if somebody has proof that that is not my bloodline, they should speak up. Wouldn't it be nice if I could have information about myself and my family? My mother was supposed to have been a prisoner of the Nazis because they knew her bloodline and they wanted to control her bloodline, which they did. They lost the war. Then the Americans came in, the Russians and the whatever, for whatever reason, the Americans ended up in control of my mother and of my birth. Okay, so why did I go there? That was one project that came over here and ended up being the mind control program, which I believe is centered in the military base in Kansas, the Wizard of Oz. But that wasn't the only project. There were many projects. There were many things that were developed to this incredible level with the help of the ETs, the bad guys. And in the United States, they came over, and there's a book written about it, Operation Paperclip. I can tell you that the major power players that they're talking about in there are not the major power players. They're not, but that's okay. I think that book addressed the issue of why are we doing the things the Nazis were doing? And so they put out this book. And I'm not saying that everything in the book is disinformation. And I'm also not saying that the person who wrote it knew that that information was being controlled and contained. What I'm telling you is if you think that that's the important information, you are mistaken. But what is important is that those programs are exactly the reason why this country became so unethical. They continued the programs, finished with the Nazis, never made the decision that the public could not know that the Second World War was the first modern war fought with metaphysics, which means the dynamics of the other dimensions. No, 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 the public can't know that. It's too scary. No, 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 it's not too scary. It would have given them too much power. So they bring all this stuff over here to the United States and they develop it even further. And if you think that the Galactics did not step in to help out again, the way they did the Nazis, then I have a bridge to sell you. I actually have several bridges, so don't worry. Other people have bought other bridges. So that is what has cut the underpinnings of what would be the ethics. And the trick is that Atlantis fell. And if you are, no, but they don't really know if this podcast, this chat is not for you. It's safer to continue to debate things like that than to understand. So, Atlantis went under because they developed this incredibly high level of technology and they did not take the time to check the ethics. How would this be good for human beings? They didn't. Because in Atlantis they didn't have schools and universities, they had temples. And they competed and this joy of developing more, and they had ETs that helped them, the bad ones, because they were in competition, they didn't look at the ethical angle of it. They just went for it and they reached the maximum. And then Atlantis was taken down by catastrophes because it could not be allowed to continue. It would have exploded the planet. We appear to be there today, this week, next week, now. But the United States appears to be grounded and landed because it has that pyramid. And I'm going to move my head to the side. There we go. That pyramid, which is crystals, is grounding and landing. I think we're going to be okay. What is it going to look like? I don't know. Actually, nobody really has solid information about what it's going to look like when we're in the shift now. When it finishes, we're not sure. I can tell you that in terms of my life, everything is getting better. Am I still stuck here in an 850-foot apartment with no friend, no movement? Yes, but the world out there is resonating more with me. So as soon as the bad guys all get locked up, put away, or are terrified enough or understand that they lost, then I'm going to be able to walk out the door and have a really good time. By the way, today I woke up to images of the Cuban mafia walking around Miami, They're not walking around Miami. They're meeting, but they have guns. They're businessmen, but they have guns. I have not seen that before. In other words, they controlled through mind control, which was controlled by the FBI and the US military. They didn't need guns. Everybody was asleep. Today they have guns. Today, the 19th of September 2025. So something's going on. So I suspect, no, they will be controlled soon. And the important point is that they're mercenaries, by the way, they're not the top dogs. They behave like they are. They have completely turned Washington into a pretzel for 50 or 60 years because of the metaphysics, because they know the dynamics of metaphysics, the other dimensions, which you call black magic, which you call magic, and they used it. And here, we don't even know about it, much less are we able to use it. And if somebody tries to give us, like the third eye on the dollar bill, I'm going to move my head again. The third eye would be at the top of that triangle. And the third eye is wisdom. We've known that for 6,000 years. Do the conspiracy groups or the people that are accused of conspiracy, do they use a third eye? Why wouldn't they? Why aren't you using it? Why did they put fluoride in the toothpaste and in the water? Because it kills the third eye. They don't want you to have that extra vision, that extra wisdom. So Miami's really interesting today. Congress is really interesting. And then I'm going to get to what I call executive coaching. I have done executive coaching forever. I did executive coaching. Let me see if I can say this. I can say it. Let me see if I should say it. I have executive coached at a presidential level. So, nothing, executive coaching is the extra information, but most of it has to do with clearing the person of their internal traumas and making sure that they're aligned, that their intentions, subconscious, are aligned with the job they're supposed to do. I worked with somebody, which is the only person I will talk about, and I'm not going to say names, who his party wanted him to run for president. He didn't really. So they set up an executive coaching session. I don't know if it was more than one, but he didn't really want to do it. So I said, you know what? He doesn't want to do it. This is not going to work. It's not going to happen. He does not want to do this. So, and he didn't, by the way. So that was good that they didn't force him to do something he didn't want to do. It would have been a mess. Maybe they could have. This was before, like Biden, they basically, it would appear, they put him to sleep and they just used him as a front robot. This man would have been totally operational, but he didn't want to do it. So it was good. And I'm really good at this. But what I learned in retrospect, because I did two people that I executive coached reached the top level, that they levels they would have never thought that they would ever reach with me coaching them, not giving them any secrets, coaching them. And both of them, their position was taken away from them. And I looked in retrospect because it had nothing to do with me. I helped them to achieve it. They didn't have the resonance for those positions. They weren't ready for it. They didn't have the inner strength. They didn't have what they needed to have. They needed more time. And with both of them, it was a very short time. And I wasn't aware of that. It was a question of work with his executives. And there were two of them because they have these positions and they ended up being higher. And then, so the whole thing of frequency is really important. They didn't have the frequency. And I couldn't, to get them to have the frequency, I would have had to have gotten involved in several aspects of their life for them to let go of stuff, and it just wasn't possible. I'm taking too long on this, but the whole thing with frequency is so important. And I didn't even have the language. Yesterday, I told somebody that we're doing our latest Mantrista music video is the frequency of 420, which is the frequency of marijuana, the frequency of the cannabis plant. And the man said, "Oh my God. So that's why they say the movement is 420. So the people that are in the marijuana movement, whatever, they don't know why 420? 420 is the frequency of the plant. And mm, that frequency is a frequency of relaxation, of becoming more spiritual. Unless you go to AI, I think in Google, and you can tell from the tone of what is written that it is not legit. And it's, well, they haven't really proven anything about the 420 frequency. Actually, that's information that's been around forever. So frequencies really important, and the people that you hang out with and the places where you live have frequencies, and it transfers to you. So I have a friend who's brilliant, and she asked me to do a reading, and I did, and she asked for a message from her guides, and her guide said, and I said to her, "You go to too many places that are really like low vibe." I didn't use the word vibe because at that time I would have never used it. You go to places that are like yuck. You go to places where they do black magic and they do all this stuff. She said, "Yeah, I do, but I'm not into that. But I really like to learn." I said, "Well, but your guides say that that's a thing that's really taking you down." And of course, she didn't believe it. She continued. She never reached her height. She never did. And she's brilliant. Her choices of thinking that she could go because she thought she was full of light to places full of darkness and it wouldn't affect her. And that is not the case. Which brings me to the tantric monks. What's the frequency of Washington, D.C.? You get a change of power, which I'm very pleased with. You all know that. But the land has a frequency. The frequency of cemeteries. Again, the indigenous, when they have, when they people die, they put them in cemeteries, and there are individuals what their job is to continuously purify the cemeteries. And you don't live on a cemetery. Washington, D.C. is a cemetery. It's a swamp. Therefore, it's a cemetery. Swamps are where Mother Earth puts spirits that are flying around that haven't gone to the light, ditches them in the cemetery. Their frequency is so low that the water is very toxic. And then I guess eventually they go to the light. So I need the tantric monks trump. I cannot handle this on my own. I can't get enough donations from my Matrista movement. We're talking several monks, because they can be given that assignment to keep Washington, D.C. purified because somebody made the lousy decision to not work with metaphysics, to not work with indigenous people, to not ask the spirits of the land, should we place the U.S. government here? You, what happens is you put good people there and their environment takes them down. And then you never purify the congressional setting, the Senate, that big room. Now we have started to purify that. We did a really good job the other day, and I worked a little bit yesterday when Cash Patel was on. And Cash, you need to visualize a block of ice inside your liver, a block of ice on both jaws, and a block of ice inside your head to reduce your legitimate fury at what you're uncovering, half of which you can't even tell the public or maybe even other people that are important. You need to be continuously cooling down. And that goes for anybody who has to be in situations that are frustrating. You have to cool down, cool down. And there you go with the balance of the elements. Look at the crystal, cool down, earth element. What does the Lord's Prayer say? Doesn't say protect us from evil, which means we're victims. It says help us, God, to be in the present, to be grounded, to be rooted. So, Cash, mucho hielo, lots of ice. You can imagine yourself in an igloo, and you can imagine the chamber, the Senate chamber in an igloo, and that will cool down, cool down, cool down. Then people that are just being vitalized by their hatred will end up like little zombies, like what happened the Monday after the Trump impeachment, when the main guy, whose name I don't remember, we had cleared the fire from that room, wherever the impeachment was, which I don't really know where it was. And we did it on a Saturday night, and Monday morning, there were photographs in the news of the guy that was running the impeachment who had been like furious. He fell asleep. He was in charge of the impeachment and he fell asleep because he didn't have the fire vitalizing his hatred. And then he went into his own. Chicago. Chicago was built on top of several Indian burial grounds. It was where several American Indian tribes lived. Their ancestral lands were taken. There were battles between them and maybe with the invaders, what we call them. But that is the reason why Chicago has so much violence. Anyway, we closed all of that. We opened up the tree of life in the center of it. And I'm very pleased with us. This morning I woke up and it was black. But when you take away all the fire, if the people are not happy, they fall into depression. So later on today, I'm going to check. This is working metaphysics, what we do. And it's not that hard. It's a lot harder to have all those police officers and all those judges and all those jails. This is so much easier. Okay. The coccyx. Facebook does not want me to talk about the coccyx. No, 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 no. The coccyx is this where magic is created. If it's vibrating at the frequency of 988, which is easy. We have a video. But I believe that the coccyx would be where the major, huge stuff from mind control would be, such as the ability to turn somebody into a Manchurian candidate. So I would like all of you to look up the mind control experiments. His last name was Delgado, Delgado. I'm going to write it here. I think he was a Spaniard, but he was working for the Americans. That's his last name. Now, I don't know if this is my keyboard or if I had a stroke. Because I cannot write something. Delegado. Did it again? No, here we go. Delgado. He did an experiment to where they had a bull in a ring, and the bull was raging towards somebody, and they had an electrical thing that they had implanted in the bull's head, and the bull stopped dead in his tracks. Look it up. It's been documented 1,000 times. But I think a lot of that, yes, they use a lot of electricity. I think a lot has to do with the coccyx. So we need to do a lot more work there. Tomorrow's an eclipse. Tomorrow's the second of two eclipses. So we're in between two eclipses. Can't go into that. I want to take you to Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated. I know nothing about him, but the little I've heard and seen his face, he looks so sweet. He looks angelic consciousness. He looks like he's part of this new age to where he can see both sides of the picture. And then he's intelligent and he was able to respond. I literally have not really listened to practically any more thing, 1 or 2 minutes, but I have that feeling. So when you have a problem, you have to ask, why do you have that problem? Why did this country need for a good man? We need more like him, it would appear, to be assassinated. And that answer is in the Gospel of Judas. Oh, Francis, but you don't like the Bible. No, 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 no. I did not say I didn't like the Bible. I said to you, I am totally Jesus Christ. I like to live like Jesus Christ. And most of the people that tout the Bible don't. And the Bible has a ton of things that you wouldn't throw at me either. So you shouldn't be running around. You can quote from it. This is my opinion. You don't agree? It's okay. I quote from it, and I'm going to quote from it now, except that the Gospel of Judas, I'm not sure was ever put in the Bible. But why would the United States need for Charlie Kirk to be murdered? Well, I'm going to answer it, but you should look up the Gospel of Judas, which was just discovered like 20 years ago, which means it wasn't in the Bible. That Vatican knew. They knew. They knew how to manipulate when they put together the Bible, which is my issue with the Bible. The Gospel of Judas, it says that Jesus went 3 times to Judas and said, I need for you to let the Romans know where I'm at. And Judas said, I'm not doing that. They'll kill you. And Jesus went to him 3 times, I need this. And finally, Judas said, okay, I'll do it. And he did it. And they crucified Jesus. Why did we need for Jesus to be crucified at that time? Remember, anytime you have a problem, you have to ask, why did I need this problem? Do you think we would have remembered anything about Jesus if he died in his bed as an old man? No. He needed to die in a very dramatic way. Okay, so why did we need for Charlie Kirk? What did this country need for Charlie Kirk to die? To go after the people? No. Why would we need for him to die? He had a message, just like Jesus Christ. And the message, until he died, was, it would appear, I have not read it, it would appear was a very solid message, and it unified people. Now, we had already passed an ascension level, so I think that also helped. But he created a nice movement. Jesus Christ died, he created a nice movement. I'm not saying Charlie Kirk is going to be like Jesus Christ or that big an influence. But I believe that if you look at the Gospel of Judas and you step back, widen your lens, you may find, okay, so this was god awful, but it was actually a really good thing. Apply it to your personal life. I've been stuck here for a year. I haven't gotten to my car, I think, for 15, 20 days, maybe longer than that. Is my Tesla going to work? I use a little clicker and turn it on every once in a while, but I'm kind of old. I think you should actually turn it on and get in it and drive. I don't know. Why would I need this? Actually, I hate to admit it, but being by myself, I have done so much inner work. I have evolved so much. And I've also disconnected from my helicopter mother um, characteristics, trying to take care of everything for everybody. Oh my God, look at what's happening with my son, what's happening with my daughter. I'm like, no, widen the lens, bigger picture. They also need their problems. So, Gospel of Judas, look at it, because if you apply it to a lot of other things, you're going to go, okay, I understand. But you have to widen your lens. You have to widen your lens. You can't be thinking just this incarnation or just this thing. You have to widen your lens. And then you can ask God, say, I want to understand this because I don't get it. When I started my therapy in the 90s, I started to remember what I went through to the mind control program. And I was like horrified. And then my sister kept saying to me, remember, you asked for this before you were born. Before you incarnate, you set yourself up. And then you hope that you can meet all your goalposts and deliver whatever it is you decide to deliver. Sometimes you don't. And I said, I'm not that stupid. Who would ever choose this? What are you, crazy? She was right. And once you accept that, if you've had a bad life, it's like you go, oh, okay. Okay. You don't feel quite so victim. So look up the Gospel of Judas. Now I can't read my notes. There's something about the age of Aquarius that everybody needs to know. The age of Aquarius is about community, brotherhood, collapse of hierarchy, and they predicted those things, and then within the predictions was an incredible augmentation of mental illness. So that is happening. So if you do not try and find out why, then we're going to have a lot more psych hospitals, and you're going to need psych medication. Da, 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 da. By the way, I never took one single pharmaceutical drug ever. I never said I'm going to kill myself, which everybody else in the group and everybody that I know in mind control at some point has. Well, the people in my group, each one of them had tried to commit suicide. Never. But I never took a single drug. Never. Not one pill. Now, I think that whoever handled me, controlled me, knew that those pharmaceutical drugs screw your mind up. And they do. So I think we need to figure out the why of the mental illness. I can tell you, when they put in cell phone towers in some cities in Spain, and this is just one study, there's dozens. Read the book Dirty Electricity. Darn, I don't remember the name of the man. He deserves a statue. It's called Dirty Electricity. But when they put in cell phone towers, suicide went up dramatically. Uh, Wi-Fi, which is what powers your cell phone and all the computers, augments suicide, uh, depression. I call it electro-depression. So it would make sense that if in the age of Aquarius, we're going to have a vast augmentation of technology, which we are, and they also said there's a vast augmentation in mental illness, I believe that there's a direct link. So, Elon, we need to work on getting those frequencies, and I can guide you to do that because apparently I'm pretty good at that, and get them into the airways, and this can be changed. So, I think I'm finished. I can obviously keep talking forever because I'm half Cuban. Remember, when I'm trashing the Cuban mafia, I'm not trashing Cubans, I'm trashing a group. Like when you say the Italian mafia, you're not trashing Italy. You still go to vacation in Italy. You're talking about a group. So the petitions, Trump, we can't wait on the thing with the tantric monks. That has to happen. Washington, you can't continue to fight the results of having your government being on top of swampland and cemeteries. Okay? That can't happen. And I can't take care of that. That has to be people that are full time, that is their job. It's not doing a mantra for 2 hours like we do with Chicago that we've done 4 times. It's beyond that. It's not repairing something. This is not a repair. This is not a closing of a portal. This is something that the way it's been done throughout history. You have a cemetery, and there are people whose job it is to be continuously working and purifying that area. I need this to happen. I don't need for this to happen. We need for this to happen. It's not fair. You're sending legislatures there, and then you turn around and say, what happens when they get to Washington? Environment is what happens. Okay? And Elon, we need to work on these frequencies in the air. And it should be easier now because I believe that by the 8 weeks after the eclipse of the 7th, which is supposed to be a point at which you look back and go, wow, things are different, either totally south or great. I think that it's going to make a huge difference it's going to make all the difference in the world to balance the elements in the other dimensions, the dimensions where Wi-Fi is. Okay? So thank you for listening. And we definitely are at the end of end times. And if you're going to do any scrambling, it needs to be you going back to your childhood and seeing what it is that you lived through, that you have deeply buried and is congesting and debilitating your frequency. Take care of that. It's not the enemy that's out there, it's the enemy that you have inside of you, okay? Thank you for listening. And I swear, even if somebody offers me $1 million, I'm not sure I can make these chats shorter. I'm so It's so important to me to share as much as possible, to give you the tools, to give you the information. See, I continue to talk. Okay, I bet you if I had a producer, that would be better. Yeah, as soon as I can actually have contact with other human beings. Bye.